Help support the companies that support our community. So I started out with a piece of maple. It's about 6 inches long and 3 inches in diameter. Got to put in between centers and trued up. So I've been making this style of baby rattle for about 25 years, I think. But this one is special. I am going to be a grandpa, so I'm super excited. I put my first video of making this style of rattle up about 15 years ago. So how you do it is put a tenon down on one end, because we're going to actually hollow out the top of it here in a minute, and just kind of shape the top of it. I like that kind of like more of an oval mushroom head on it, but you can do a round or whatever shape you want. We're going to fill it up with beans here when we're all done and glue it all together. So I'm just using a spindle gouge to get that true, and then we'll start working on the handle. I usually shape the majority of it while it's in between centers, and then we'll pull it out and put it in the chuck and when we get a little bit closer and get it hollowed out. So the handle, you just put a tenon on it. It's kind of like making a little lidded box. Same process. Then we'll finish shaping the handle and then get that parted off. So when it's all done, it is about 5 inches tall, and the diameter of the top of it is about 2.5 inches. And the lathe speed it's about 2,500. I usually, for smaller stuff like this, I usually run it around there or a little bit higher. So I did have a little bark enclosure down on the bottom of it, so I kind of worked around that. I didn't want to have a big bark enclosure down on the bottom of the handle, so I kind of kept turning the lathe off and on to check it and make sure I wasn't getting too close to it. Once you get the shape you want, we'll go ahead and take it out of the centers and mount it in the chuck, and then part off the bottom of it there. And I just brought the tailstock back up to support it a little bit while I brought that down. You can kind of see that bark enclosure, so I was trying to stay away from that. Although it looks great on a vase or a bowl or something, baby rattle probably not so much. Now I cleaned up the end of it with the #1 hollower. So I ran through a couple of grits dry and then went ahead and put the oil on it. So this is Doctor's Walnut Oil, and I sand with this. I usually do a couple grits dry and then switch over and start sanding with the oil. I just stayed away from the tenon. I didn't want to get any oil down on that, and it just finished it off. So if you want to line up the grain a little better, I just don't take another pass with the parting tool. Just use a thin saw like this. It'll make it a little easier to line everything back up. Then I switched back over to the number 1 hollower and started hollowing it out. So I made the recess the same size as the tenon. I just came straight in because you want a little bit of material there, so in case it gets banged around, it's not really thin and breaks. So I switch over to the number 2 hollower here in a second and get back around that corner, but I leave that recess the same size as the tenon, so it has a little bit of stability. And with this, just take your time hollowing it out. I keep turning it off, checking the wall thickness. You want it pretty even as far as the sound goes when you put the beans in it. So you want to make sure it's thin enough to where it's going to make a nice sound, but not too thin. Now I finished it off with went back to the number 1 hollower and cleaned up the bottom of it. I ran through all the grits on it again on this. Dry, just a couple of them, and then I didn't switch over to the oil on this because I don't want to get oil down in that recess there, or down in the opening. I sanded all the way up to 600 dry, and then we'll flip it around and finish off the top. And to get it off, I used a parting tool. We'll get that parted off, and then I'm going to make a little jam chuck to hold on to it. So I just sized this down to where it fit on there nice and tight. I just took my time, just taking little bits off at a time, make sure it was nice and fit well. And then when I get this done, I bring the tailstock back up to support a little bit to clean up the majority of that stuff on top, and then sand it. But when you're making a tenon, or to hold on to something like this, a little jam chuck, make sure you just take your time and get it to fit nice. And to clean up the top, I went back to the number 1 hollower and just made a couple of passes across here, and then pulled the tailstock away and started sanding it. So with this, I ran through a couple of grits dry and then switched over and used the walnut oil. And if you're wondering, the walnut oil is food safe, so you can use it as a finish for something like this, or a salad bowl or anything. Now that it's all oiled, we'll glue it together. So I usually take and put, I would say about 10 beans in there. You can kind of hold your finger over it and rattle around, see if it's the sound you like. I usually, I guess, do about 10 or so. And just put a little bit of wood glue on the tenon. You don't need a whole bunch. And then I stand it or turn it upside down so that the beans are in the bottom of it, actually the top, so that they don't get any glue on them and stick to the side, and just let it set up and you're ready to go. There we go. Again, it is out of maple burl. It's 4.5 inches tall and 2.5 inches in diameter. So I've been making these for quite a while, but this one is special, so I'm going to be a grandpa here in a few months, so I'm super excited about that. They're really fun projects. I've been making them for a long time. I like that shape there, that style on the top, but like I said, you can make them into spheres or anything you want. It's basically like turning a lidded box, so super fun project. SWAT, we had another wonderful year at SWAT. It is so much fun. If you're thinking about going to a symposium and haven't been to one before, just it's probably the best one. Everybody there is so nice. We had just a wonderful time just hanging out and talking with everybody. It was just amazing. Captain Eddie was there. He hadn't been there in a few years, so it was just nice to catch up with him too. Yeah, the whole gang from Easywood, Jesse was there, Jake and Mike, Glenn was there. Glenn, hi. Yeah, it was a great time. It's just an amazing symposium. So if you're thinking about going to one, I will put a link down below in the description. It's every August. It's at the end of August. So maybe plan on doing that. It's a great show. All right, I hope everybody enjoyed the video, and we will see you next time. Take care.